Hey everybody, and welcome to my reviews of two Mega Pokemon sets. Today we're going to be taking a look at Zubat's Midnight Flight on the left and Piplup and Sneasel's Snow Day on the right. And the reason why I wanted to review both of these sets at the same time is they can actually combine, but we'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to go ahead and start by taking a look at the Pokemon that come in these sets, and we're going to start with Zubat here. I do like the overall shape of Zubat. I think Mega did a good job capturing the overall look and design of the Pokemon, but I do feel like it is just a little bit too big when compared to the Pokemon in the anime and video games. I don't want to consider this a negative though, because if Mega made him any smaller, Zubat would probably lose some of its detail. Zubat does come with a pretty fair bit of articulation. His wings are on ball joints so they can be moved inward and outward. This will allow you to put Zubat in some poses to make it look like he is flying or flapping his wings. The head of Zubat is also on a ball joint, which allows the head to be rotated up and down and side to side. Which is interesting to me because Zubat typically doesn't have a neck. Zubat's ears also have a little bit of articulation, and one of the things that I want to point out about this is if I move him closer, you can see that there's actually a little bit of purple printing inside of the ears. It's a nice little bit of detail that I appreciate and is accurate to the Pokemon's design. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the Pokemon Piplup, and overall I really do like the design of Piplup here. I do feel like the overall shape and design of Piplup is good enough for what it's trying to represent. I do like the rubber piece that comes down over Piplup's back. It's accurate to the Pokemon's design, and I think it's executed well. As we continue to spin Piplup around to the front, you can see it's also got some relatively good printing. One of the things that I'm finding consistently accurate with these Mega Pokemon are their face prints. I think a lot of them are very well done and very accurate to what the Pokemon looks like. Piplup also has a little bit of printing there on its chest. The only thing that I wish would have been different with Piplup's design is maybe have a little bit of printing on the beak to represent a mouth. Without that detail, to me it looks like a carrot nose on a snowman. Piplup does come with some pretty solid articulation. The head is on a ball joint, which of course allows it to move side to side and up and down. If we take Piplup and turn it to the side here, you can see there's also some articulation in its flippers. These are not on ball joints, so they can only be moved up and down. Lastly, the feet of Piplup are able to be moved outward and inward. So overall, you're able to get Piplup into some pretty cute poses. The last Pokemon we're taking a look at is Sneasel, which when I first saw its design on the box, I wasn't really sure how I would feel about it, but now that I've seen it in person, I actually don't necessarily hate it. There are some parts of its design that I think are a little weird, like the tail back here, which is made up of 3 pieces stacked on top of each other, and when you look at Sneasel from the side, it can look a little too long and bulky, and awkward. The other thing that kind of bothers me about Sneasel is I do feel like its body's a little too long. But other than those two things, and I don't think they're necessarily a deal breaker, I do like Sneasel. And it's also got a lot of printed detail on it, which of course is always good to see. Just like Piplup, Sneasel's head is on a ball joint, which allows for the same articulation of being moved side to side and up and down. The plus side to Sneasel having a longer body is its extremities can be longer as well, allowing for them to have double joints. Both of Sneasel's shoulders and elbows have ball joints, which allows for a wide variety of range of motion and posability. Both of Sneasel's feet are able to be rotated inward and outward, and both of Sneasel's hips are on ball joints, which allows for the legs to be moved outward and rotated backwards. With all this extra articulation and posability, you are able to get Sneasel into some pretty cool poses. Now that we have the Pokemon out of the way, we're going to be talking about the bases that both of these sets come with. We'll go ahead and start with the base that comes in Zubat's set. It's got a really small design, and because of that, there's not really a lot of room for detail. There are a couple of clips on the side here if you wanted to attach it to other sets or expand upon it. As you can see, the base is mainly tan and made up of a couple colors of gray. I do like the little leaves that are sprinkled throughout the set to give it a little bit of extra color. There's also this really obvious red knob sticking out of the side of the set, and we're going to talk about that right now. If we take the red knob and start to rotate it, you can see that gray pipe-looking piece will rotate along with it. And if we take a look at the back of Zubat, you can actually see there's a little hole here. This allows you to place Zubat onto that gray pipe-looking piece. Once you have Zubat secured, you can rotate the red knob and it allows Zubat to fly around in a circular pattern. And I think it's a cute feature and a welcome addition to this little set. Now we're going to be taking a look at the base that comes in the Piplup and Sneasel Snow Day set. This base is a lot bigger and has a lot more detail. You can also see this set comes with a couple clips on the side here. And if we continue to rotate along, you can also see there's this vine growing on the side. I do like the wide variety of color here. I think it makes it a lot more interesting than Zubat's base. And if you're enjoying the video so far, maybe consider giving the video a like and subscribing to my channel for more brick built reviews. As we continue to make our way along here, you can also see there's a couple of icicles here at the top of the base. And they actually have a little bit of movement to them as well. As we continue to rotate around, you can also see there's that same red knob sticking out of the side there, as well as a second set of those clips if you wanted to attach it to more than one set. We're going to take a look at the base from a top-down perspective, and as we start to pan down here, you can see there's a lot of white and light blue. I really like these transparent light blue pieces because they kind of have a little bit of a textured look to them. There's also the small circular base to the right here. And if we start to turn the red knob, you can see it allows that center piece there to rotate. It also hits those small spherical pieces, which allows the circular base to rotate as well. There's plenty of room to place Piplup and Sneasel on the base, and turning the red knob will just give them a little bit of movement. One of the things that I really like about this is Piplup's head hits the icicles, which allows them to move as well. Now we're finally ready to talk about this combination feature. Both of the sets have clips, which allows you to easily combine these sets. But if we take a look at the back of Zubat's set, you can see it hasn't combined it in a different way. Per the picture on the back of the box, we're going to take the Piplup and Sneasel set and remove the red knob. Once we've got that done, we're going to take the Zubat set and we're going to line them up and push them together. It's a relatively simple and straightforward process, and it isn't too difficult to get done. Once the sets have been combined, you can see there's this gap between the two of them here. I double-checked the back of the box, and this is how they want you to combine these sets. Which I don't necessarily hate the way that it looks, but I do have a problem with it. Because of that gap, the only thing holding these sets together is the rod. And it's not super strong. As you can see when I rotate the knob, you can see the Pokemon aren't moving as fluidly as they were before. And you can see the Zubat set kind of popping off the table a little bit there. And again, that has to do with the weak connection. I also feel like all these Pokemon are a little too close together, and when you rotate it around, it just feels a little crowded and sometimes they get stuck on each other. I much prefer taking these two sets and combining them with the clips that are integrated into their design. This makes it feel stronger overall and allows you to move the Pokemon around a little bit more fluidly. But as you can see, there's still the issue of it being just a little too crowded. You can get the Zubat set for around $10 online, and you can get the Piplup and Sneasel set for around $15 to $20. So if you wanted to have these sets combined, you're going to be looking at about $30 to $35, which I don't really think is worth it. If I had to pick between these two sets, I definitely would rather have the Piplup and Sneasel set. Thank you so much for watching my review, and subscribe to my channel for more brick-built content. Hey everybody, and welcome to my review of the Mega Pokemon set, Vulpix Evolution set. This set comes with 145 pieces and is recommended for ages 7 and up. And this set features two Pokemon, Vulpix and its evolution, Ninetales. We're going to start by taking a look at Vulpix, which I think has a pretty good design, but I do have a couple of issues with it, the first of which being that it doesn't have a printed mouth on its face. The other thing I'm not necessarily a big fan of is the hairpiece on top of its head. It does have some printed detail on the sides, which is cool to see, but the overall shape of it just feels a little off to me. My favorite part about this figure has to be the tail piece that's included. I think it looks really good. And Mega doesn't seem to have a problem making specific pieces for the tails of Pokemon, so I'm not real sure why they couldn't do the same thing for Vulpix's hair. Besides those little issues, I do like the overall design, and I think it's implemented well for the Pokemon it's trying to represent. The last couple things I want to mention about this Pokemon is that little bit of hair at the front of Vulpix's head is a rubber piece for a little bit of extra detail, and it has some printing on the inside of its ears. Vulpix does come with a pretty good range of articulation. All four of its legs are on ball joints, so they can be moved out to the side as well as front and backwards. There's also a second ball joint halfway down Vulpix's legs, however I find them rather hard to manipulate, and if you try to force it into a position, it's going to pop the whole leg off. Which I don't think is necessarily too big of a deal, you just have to be careful when posing the Pokemon. The head of Vulpix is also on a ball joint, which allows the head to be moved side to side as well as up and down. As well as the tail of Vulpix, it is also on a ball joint, so it has some articulation as well. With Vulpix out of the way, we're now ready to talk about its evolution, Ninetales, who I think actually has a rather strong design. I was a little worried about the tails being too heavy for the Pokemon to stand up, but luckily they can actually help support the Pokemon. Ninetales has a rubber piece meant to represent some fur on the front of the chest, as well as having a relatively solid face print, and I love the specialized piece that fits on top of the head for that little bit of extra detail and shape. As the name suggests, Ninetales has, well, 9 tails. And I think they look relatively good for what they're trying to be, and I love the little bit of printed detail on the end of each tail. As far as articulation goes, the head of Ninetales is on a ball joint just like Vulpix, so it's able to be rotated side to side, and it can be moved up and down and rotated all around. The legs of Ninetales are also on ball joints, so they have the same range of motion. They can be moved forward and backwards, rotated to the side, and moved all around. And I think now's a good time to mention really the only problem I have with this Pokemon are its back legs. I do like the shape, but I feel like Ninetales' back thigh is a little too small. And because of its size, I do feel like it is a little awkward looking. The back legs are also on a ball joint, so they can be moved up and down, side to side, rotated all around. You get the idea. This Pokemon has some pretty good articulation. The tails of Ninetales can help support the Pokemon when they're facing downward, but they do have some pretty good articulation. The base of the tails are in groups of 3, and they're all ball joints, so they can be moved around. And at the end of each of these 3 pieces, there are 3 ball joints for the tip of the tails. You do have to be careful though, because the tails are really heavy and they can fall off rather easily. And I'm not real sure how I feel about the design of these tails. They are really heavy, and if they're not in any position to help support Ninetales, it's going to fall over unless it has some stud support. The last thing that's included in the set is this really simple base for you to place Ninetales and Vulpix on. And while its design is really simple, I do feel like it's necessary due to the weight of those tails. You can find this set online and in stores for about $20. Personally, I think this set fits the $15 to $18 price range a little bit better than the $20, but if you can find the set on clearance or cheaper than that, I do think it is worth picking up, especially if you're a fan of Pokemon. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more brick built reviews. Hey everybody, and welcome to another Mega Construx Pokemon review here on my channel. This time we're going to be taking a look at the set called Froakie vs. Dedenne. This set comes with 124 pieces and is recommended for ages 6 and up. We're going to kick off this review by taking a look at the Pokemon that are included in this set, starting with Dedenne. And while I do like the overall look and design of Dedenne, I am a little disappointed by the lack of articulation this Pokemon has. And with how Mega has decided to build Dedenne here, there is no articulation in its neck or arms. Really, the only articulation this Pokemon has is in its ears, which can be moved side to side and rotated around, and in its feet, which can be moved side to side. Dedenne does have some really good printing all around though. You can see some printing here on the back of the Pokemon, and I think it looks rather nice. Dedenne does have a long tail that wraps around to the front of the Pokemon where it can hold it in its front hands. And as we make our way back to the front of Dedenne, you can see that there is a rubber piece in its head to give the detail of whiskers. I also like the face print for this Pokemon. I find it to be rather cute. The other Pokemon that comes in this set is Froakie. And Froakie is one of my favorite Pokemon, and while I do like its overall design in this brick-built form, I do feel like there are a couple of issues with it. But we'll start with the things that I do like, which is the overall color and shape of Froakie. I think it looks rather good. And unlike Dedenne, Froakie does come with a pretty good variety of articulation thanks to the ball joints in the shoulders, hips, and knees. You can also see that white rubberized piece around the neck of Froakie to give the detail of the fluff that is around his neck. And I do like the printed detail on this Pokemon as well. You can see there is some dark blue printing at the top of his head there. And I also like the piece that Mega decided to use for the hand of Froakie. I think it fits the overall look and design of the Pokemon well and is accurate to what it's trying to represent. And as we make our way back to the front of Froakie, you can see that there is some printed detail for the Pokemon's eyes as well as on the front of his face. Unfortunately, due to the design of Froakie's legs, you can't place this Pokemon onto studs, which is a little disappointing. And while Froakie does have the posability to straighten out his legs and have him stand on one foot, it's going to be near impossible unless he has some stud support. The other thing about Froakie that I don't necessarily care for is the choice to make his eyes two different pieces. And because the pieces aren't connected, you can actually move them in two different directions, which can make Froakie look a little weird. With the Pokemon out of the way, we're now going to talk about the build for this set, which is the Berry Stand, which I find to be quite an interesting build. There are some things that I like about it, and then there's some things that I don't like about it. One of the things that I don't necessarily care for is the base for this build, because to me it just kind of seems like it's a bunch of random pieces thrown together. There's no symmetry or consistency, and I have no idea what it's trying to represent. The other design choice that I find to be rather interesting is there's just random water floating below the umbrella. I know that this is meant to be a water attack from Froakie, but I do feel like it's executed very strangely here. I don't mind the design of the berry stand itself. It's a rather simple design, but it works well for what it's trying to be. You can see a brick-built cash register behind the stand, and I do wish there was a sticker on it for a little bit of extra detail. I do wish Mega would include some people figures in some of these Mega Pokemon sets, because I think it would be cool to have somebody running the berry stand. This set does come with 3 different crates of berries that you can place on top of the stand, and when you push this lever down, it causes them to go flying. And while it is a pretty cool feature, sometimes it doesn't work as well as I would like it to. This set also comes with a very simple brick-built berry sign to point you in the direction of the berry stand. You can find this set online for about $20 to $25, and I don't know if I can really recommend it for that price. I don't necessarily mind the design of the Pokemon, but I really don't like the design of the environment that is around the berry stand. It just seems like it's a bunch of pieces thrown together and looks ugly to me. I do like the feature of having the berries fly off the stand, but sometimes it doesn't work as well as I want it to. Thank you so much for watching my review, and be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more brick-built reviews. Hey everybody, welcome to another Mega Construx Pokemon review here on my channel. This time we're taking a look at Galarian Zigzagoon vs. Machop. This set comes with 149 pieces and is recommended for ages 6 and up. We're going to kick off this review by taking a look at the Pokemon that come in this set, starting with Galarian Zigzagoon here. And I feel like Zigzagoon and its Galarian variant are pretty hard to pull off in brick-built form due to their spiky design. And I feel like Mega did a decent job recreating this Pokemon with the use of building bricks. I do think when you look at Zigzagoon from the side here, the 3 spikes on its back can look a little awkward, but other than that, I actually don't necessarily mind the design of this Pokemon. Galarian Zigzagoon's tail and all 4 of its legs have ball joints, so they're able to be rotated around. But strangely enough, Galarian Zigzagoon's head is not on a ball joint, so its head can only be rotated left and right. I don't think it's necessarily too big of a deal, but it is interesting to note, and I do like the face print of this Pokemon and its overall design. The other Pokemon that is included in this set is Machop, and I'm not really a big fan of its overall design. I think the body of the Pokemon looks weird, and I think it's emphasized due to that one piece in the middle of the chest that's rotated sideways. And you can see that same design choice on the back of the Pokemon, and the 2 pieces don't connect in any way, so there's this big gap on the side of the Pokemon, and it just looks weird. On a more positive note, Machop does come with a lot of ball joints, so the posability and articulation on this Pokemon is rather impressive. And I do like the overall head shape and face print on Machop. I just wish Mega would have come up with a little bit of a different design for the body of the Pokemon. With both of the Pokemon out of the way, we're now going to talk about the small environmental build that comes in this set. And overall, I think this is a relatively simple build. There are some things that I like about it, and then there's some things that I don't like about it. I do like all of the greenery that's in this build, as well as the leaf pieces to give it a little bit of extra detail and really give it that jungly feel. My biggest issue with this set is that the archway here, when I spin it around, there is nothing connecting the two pieces together. It makes the build feel really cheap and flimsy in my opinion, and I don't know why Mega didn't throw in one extra piece to connect the two sides together. I went ahead and grabbed a brick from my own personal collection to put the two sides together. And I don't think it hurts the overall design and look of the build, so I'm not real sure why Mega didn't include this piece. But just to show you, with the inclusion of this piece, the build feels a lot stronger overall. This set does come with a play feature. If I pull back on this black wedge here, Zigzagoon will jump from the bushes to attack Machop. Pulling this piece back also allows Machop to rotate side to side to counterattack. And personally, I do like the design choice of having the leaves in the way of Zigzagoon to really give it the effect of it jumping through the bushes, but I do feel like this could be a hindrance on some and could annoy some people. This set does come with a dusk ball pen, which is a nice inclusion I suppose. It's only made up of two pieces, but I do like the printed detail on it. I think it looks relatively solid. And the idea with this piece is that you can attach it to a backpack. I got this set at Dollar General a couple weeks ago, and honestly I forget how much I paid for it. But for me personally, I wouldn't want to pay more than $15 for this set. I'm not the biggest fan of Machop's design, and while I do like the build, I do feel like there are a couple of missed opportunities. Thank you so much for watching my review, and be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for future brick built reviews.